Mr. Kimmitt, you were the ambassador to Germany in the 90s, and you were also the Deputy Secretary of the Treasury under President George W. Bush. You know, and populism obviously isn't an issue that's unique to the States. I mean, we've seen a similar phenomenon in Europe. There's been a very large grassroots mobilization against TTIP in Germany in particular. You know, we've also seen issues with the Canadian trade deal, moving through the process of approval in Europe. I mean, what can the U.S. government say or do to, reassure the concerns of, Europeans about, a watering down of consumer and labor standards?
The agreement, that is TTIP, still needs to go into its final negotiations. I think the U.S. should listen very carefully to the concerns that are expressed not just by the European negotiators, but by the European population, because ultimately we want an agreement that will be passed on both sides of the Atlantic. But I would also say for U.S. political leaders and European political leaders, it's important to stand up and say that you're going to be stronger at home. You're going to have more jobs and opportunity at home if you are strong and engaged abroad. That works as a good example, I think, for both sides. So there has to be good information, good public affairs campaigns, but it also requires good political leadership.
Why haven't they been able to effectively communicate that message on both sides of the Atlantic yet in terms of, the benefits of trade that you're talking about?
I think governments went deep in tactical negotiations, and opponents went very high on strategic opposition. I think the governments need to get more strategic in their messaging and bring this to a successful conclusion.
And then finally, so far this kind of protectionist rhetoric has been directed towards, China, and Mexico and the United States. In Europe, in fact, it's actually been directed at the U.S. with TTIP. So, I mean, how is this phenomenon going to affect transatlantic relations ultimately? I mean, do you think this could impact, investment of European companies in the U.S. or vice versa?
It could affect investment into the United States or into Europe if this trade rhetoric turns out to be bad trade policy. I don't anticipate it will be. I think the cooler heads will prevail after the election. It doesn't mean that there won't be a political struggle in the United States or in Europe. That's where leadership comes in. And I think it's important for leaders to make the case to the people that you need to be strong, you need to be confident, you need to be open to investment, but you also have to listen to the people perhaps a little bit better than the governments did at the opening of the negotiation.
Ambassador Kimmitt, thank you very much.
Thank you.